Hi everyone, welcome to this webinar in which we will be talking about how to teach the 5 E's. First of all, I really would like to check, if everyone can hear me properly. I've seen some messages at the YouTube, but I would like to check it twice. I've seen some messages at the YouTube, but I would like to check it twice. Right. It's time to start. First of all, I really would like to introduce myself, and then why are we doing this? Right. I'm Willy Cano. I'm a teacher at the International University of La Rioja, which is an online university here settled in Madrid, in Spain, but also in several countries around the world, especially Latin American countries. As it is, a totally online university, we do not get in contact with the students but online. Everything is online, and this helps me a lot to reach, my goals once we are working, in other type of schools. It can be, in primary education and secondary education, where we've got, some consultancy, right? Um, in this university, we are lucky to be used different ways to connect to people, and especially to avoid, disconnection among, the university students and every single one separately isolated, right? So the experience you get through that is something that can help us a lot, especially now with this situation of lockdown, in which we are at home teaching our students. No matter if you are a teacher in primary education, secondary education, or the university, I'm going to give you an example, and through that example, we will be able to start talking about, what you can implement in the classroom in order to get in contact with the students, to stop losing, lack of content, and to be close to them even in this situation, right? So I'm going to share with you my screen so we will be able to take a look at the PowerPoint presentation, and we will go one by one, right? The first thing is I've got several questions for you. One of the main questions that we got is that once we are working with 5 E's, and for those that are new with this type of methodology, 5 E's are very connected to science. There is a first question that it comes to my mind, which is should we teach science as other subjects? Imagine that we are teaching mathematics. There is a specific way of teaching mathematics, but also inside mathematics there are specific ways of teaching some content. It's not the same thing to teach algebra than any other content in mathematics. But if we take a look especially to science, which is the matter of this webinar, it's not the same, for example, to teach the human body than physics or than chemistry or life science, right? So what it really demands, as a subject in general, is a different way to teach, the subject. It's difficult to teach this if it's not connected, to the rest of the world. So we can also take, some ideas from other, subjects, and they can be applied into how to teach science, right? And so from my point of view, we do really need, to teach, differently. And this is what I'm gonna show you. And I really would like to show you, how it comes to me, the way of changing. So I'm gonna go directly to what the scientific method is, and once we understand, what the scientific method is, we can start running into the 5 E's. Let me introduce all these, through this video.
The scientific method. A way of working systematically that is used to obtain provable answers. This is very important because it's explanations based on facts and not on suppositions that science considers most valuable. The scientific method is a process consisting of various steps. Observe. Do background research. Formulate a hypothesis. Experiment. Come to a conclusion.
So as you could see, through this video, science and most of the content in science can be taught following this, especially because this is the way scientists work, right? But there is a big difference between what scientists use and what we need as teachers, right? So first of all, let's do a review of what the the scientific method is, and this we will be able to run into the next one, right? Sorry, because this image seems to be in Spanish, right? But observe is the first step in which we will have to take a look at what we got surrounding us, and we as teachers can like, let's say, motivate students through a specific phenomenon, and students have to start looking for what is the second part, which is research, looking for information, there are many ways to do it, and all depends on the contents, but it is very important to go through all these steps towards reaching the goals, right? Once the students have seen has been engaged through what the observation has done, which is like showing, for example, a good question, like what we call sometimes big questions, which is why a drop of water is pointy on the top and rounded at the bottom. Through that, students will look for information, and this look for information will create, will be thousands of investigations around. We're talking about just a tiny, drop of water, but through that, states of matter will be taught or will be learned. Also, it will be learned, the water cycle and all the processes that are involved into that, right? Then students will start creating a hypothesis, and through that hypothesis students will be testing and collecting information, recording what they have done. So as you can see, as teachers, the role has changed a lot. If we are introducing the scientific method, we are just much more than teachers. We are guides, and the students are the ones that take the responsibility and the ownership of the learning process. Through the hypothesis, students will have several ideas of what it can come once they experience or experiment any situation related to the phenomena. So it's the moment to experiment, and we have to provide here a lot of experiments for our students to be able to remember and to be able to take their own conclusions, right? So experimentation here is very important, and from my point of view, is this moment in which we have to be very close to them in order to help them, let's say close the doubts that they've got, or answer any big questions that they can have before going to the last step, which is the conclusion, right? But this is, as I mentioned before, the scientific method. This is what scientists work with, and it's not the same. One thing is how scientists work, and another thing is how science can be taught. So we have to transform the scientific method into something edible for students, into 5 E's. And this is, the matter of the introduction of today's webinar, right? Which is, the first step in 5 E's is going to be engage. The second one will be explore. The third one will be explain. Fourth one, elaborate. And fifth, evaluate. And the most important thing here, students are in the center. This is a student-centered, methodology. We are no longer the ones giving, the master class. We are one step back, guiding students, helping students, assisting them every single time they've got a problem. So, with this idea, which as you can see is very related to what we were talking, very similar to what we were talking, about the scientific method, so there is a lot that we can take from here. We're gonna develop, the 5 E's. And how do I do it? And I'm gonna give you an example, which is gonna be primary education, the latest stages, of primary education. Imagine, 9 to 12 years old. We're gonna talk about, one of the subjects that has the least amount of resources that can be easily found, in the internet, which is, from my point of view, machines, energy, physics, right? what I do is that I go and I try to find all these resources into the website of LA Sapiens, right? And Science and Fun, this platform can give me a lot of resources. What I usually do is that I go into a unit. So my suggestion is go look for a unit and you will be able to work with it. Today I'm going to work with this unit, which is matter, properties and changes. But not only that, if you click on the platform, you will be able to find more than 5 units that can connect to these. So in case you want to work with attention to diversity, with the students with special needs, or with the students that can give more, no props at all. There is always resources here for lower and higher levels. So there's no problem at all. But not only that, I also take a look at everything that I will need along these 5 steps that I mentioned before. So for that I will need some technology, and the technology that I'm going to use in this, it's for example software to get connected to my students openly and easily without the necessity of logging. And these are some examples. The one that I use the most is Jitsi Meet, but of course you can also use Hangouts. Any of these two or any other that can be very helpful. Another thing that I use, and obviously in the 21st century is totally needed, is the internet. So I will ask students to go to the internet several times towards looking or searching for information. Also YouTube, because there is a lot about YouTube, about specifically about this topic, which is difficult to find to find any kind of content, right? And then as an example of what you can do to search, with the students, Padlet, which is a software in which every single person can edit at the same time. So I can have a classroom of 30 students, and the 30 students can be working in a single place. These, with what Padlet means and what Padlet does for us, is that it collects all the information and is all in a unique place, so everyone can go to that place. And this is basic if we want to work in the situation of lockdown in which we are right now. Every single time we can connect to our students, and students can connect to the content in a single place, is a good thing, right? So that's why I use this platform. And let me tell you how I'm gonna work with these contents. As you can see in the main part of the slide, we've got some icons. We've got the icon of online activity, documents, video, and offline activities. As you can see, there are a lot of information here. So what I'm going to show you is how I do use every single of the resources, right? For the step of engage, I usually use the video, and not always the whole video. Today we will work with a different way of applying the video into the classroom. You can work with some parts of the video and then go further later when it's really needed, right? In the step of explore, I will work with the specific documents that are not, let's say, that are interactive. Like for example, the key concepts about the content. The key concepts is the document, interactive document in which students can go search for information. It's everything collected there, and it's very important to have this type of document as the students need something to take a look or to search as the main source. So for me, in this unit, one of the main sources, or I can say the main source, will be the key concepts. Then we got a webcomic that can help them to understand what is in the video in a written code, and also in a funny and ludic way. And then we got a glossary. The glossary is English into English, so students will have the new words, and they will be able to take a look at them. Glossary is not 100% something that I need the students to get in their minds, as if they were learning every single word by heart. Not at all. What I want students is to take a look at the glossary and create their own definitions with their own words, right? For those who consider learning in bilingual education and bilingual situations, especially in the schools in which there are students which are of different languages, and in the case, for example, of the US, in which you also can find students with with the Spanish as the first language and English as the second, there's no problem at all. That is always the way to twist it. I don't use it at the school, and I really would like to talk about that. I don't use it at a school. My classes are only in English, and because here in Europe we follow the quote of one phase, one language, one subject, one language. So if students, especially for parents, if they want to know, what is going on in the classroom, of course, they've got the chance to change, the language of the platform and have a look at it, in other language. Then we got, for example, for the third step, coming back, to the 5 E's, we've got again the video, and I will use a different part of the video, and then some documents that can help them, to get prepared for elaborate, because they are based on experiments. Once this is done, we run into elaborate, where they've got an offline activity that the platform can provide us with. But in any case, my suggestion is that we have to provide them as much as possible experiments, right? So in this case, we will work with one. We will mention one, but it's very important to give them as much experience as possible. This is based on the idea of learning by doing, which is, from my point of view, very, very interesting, right? And for the last, step, we will have evaluate, which is focused on online activities. As you can see, we got here online activities about mass and volume on states and changes. I don't wait till the end to do it. I place them, as I mentioned before, here in the second step. So we are checking and having continuous assessment about our students, and the students can check if they have consolidated the information taken or not in every single step. This is a good idea to avoid problems by the end of the process. So we, as guiders, as people who are guiding the students towards achieving the goals, we have to be checking and helping the students to reach and achieve the goals. My suggestion as teachers is that it is a very good way to work with them, as the students are taking the protagonism of this unit. They're working with it, and what they need is us just to help them. So I can give much more time for those who require more need, for example, the students with special needs, and I'm working much more personalized, right? Now I'm gonna start talking about every single of these steps one by one. I'm gonna start talking about, first of all, engage, then explore, then explain, then elaborate, and then evaluate, but in depth, right? So if we go to the first one, which is engage, the goal, the main goal or the aim of this step is to check the previous knowledge. And when I say awake the students' curiosity and to get students engaged about a specific topic, I'm not saying that they have to be listening to us in a passive way. What I want them is to get activated, and especially not only to listen to my questions, but also to let them make more questions about the first question or the first situation that I mentioned at the beginning of this unit. And especially, I want students to be to pay special attention to observation and investigation. They have to get focused on what is going on, where I observe this phenomenon in other places and things like that. What I want is students to be focused on this, which is curiosity by the end. And curiosity is one of the most important ingredients when we are talking about learning, right? Let me show you how I do it, right? In every single of the explanation of these steps, as you can see, in the chart at the right, we've got the teacher's role and the student's role, just to make sure everything is clear in both sides. And you will see that always there is a lot of much more in the student's role than in teacher's role. And this is because our role, it's as I told you, it's being a guide in this process. Let's go to the first step and how I do it. This is my proposal. So in my proposal, I will invite all the students to get connected to me through Jitsi Meet or Hangouts. And I will, take a look at a video. And in this video, is not a long video. It's just a very short part of the video. Please take a look at that, and then we talk.
Matter and its changes.
Huh? Whatever happened to this ice cream?
So for me, the big question or the very beginning, and there are many ways to find, how to create a big question. There is a website, from Sugata Mitra, a person who is working a lot on this, in the UK. It's called, the School in the Cloud. You can take a look at how to make, big questions there, and also examples from other teachers. But in this case, for me, why does the ice cream melt is the big question. In this question, throughout these questions, and students will have to investigate what's going on here. And through that, look at all the contents that are behind this. So this is my big question that I expose students to. But now I want students to give me much more information or other questions that can be related to this one. And then something that is very important is to split this big question into what I call mild questions. Tell me more questions related to this one that have less relevance, but if they are important or they are a key in order to achieve the goals, right? And in every single time we are working with the 5 E's and online, after every single step and collecting and talking to our students, this is the first connection to them through Gypsy Meet, as I told you, is the moment to give them an assignment to be done individually. Because by the end, we will work a lot, in a group, in teams, but it's especially needed by the end, to have a proper evaluation of every single individual. So my first assignment will be to check the following resources, to check the key concepts, which is what I told you, is my main resource in this unit, and to take a look at the glossary if needed, right? With these two, they will be creating their own ideas about what the topic is and how they can work with it. If someone gets content and bring to the next step with something totally different to this, we can guide them. That's why the key concepts is very needed. I don't want students to get lost in some parts of knowledge that are not connected to the big question, right? So the key concept will get students focused on the content, right? Then we will step into explore, which is first of all an introduction of the key concepts. I want students to be 100% focused on the content, and I'm not going to ask the students for the content, not at all. They are exploring, but I want students to have a general idea of what is there and where they can find the information. For those who really need further information, not only with this key concept, but they can find other key concepts in the platform and also in the internet, even though it's more difficult in the internet than in the platform. Then it's very important at this stage, this step, to blend the theory and the activities. Why? Because this is the moment in which the theory is not important at all, and learning by doing will get much more information. Give me experiences. Tell me how it was in your life. It's not like a theory of how to tie shoes, no, it's just tell me how you do it. And there are many ways to tie shoes, but by the end the goal is achieved. So I want them to have as many experiences as possible. This is the idea. I don't know if I explained that clear, but for me it's very interesting to give them the possibility to have to blend the theory into activities that are 100% related to the realia, something that they can apply directly in their lives, right? And also discover new content and skills. And when I say skills, I'm not only talking about skills, science skills, but also for those who are working in bilingual education, it's very important to let the students start developing skills in their second language. For example, here in Spain, we are teaching science. In most of bilingual schools, we teach science in English. So I want students to develop their oral skills as well as their reading and writing skills. So this is a way to introduce, and that's why we have to be blending the content and the language, right? That's why clearly is very important here. The role of the teacher, as you can see in the chart, is to help students understand the new content. If there is any doubt, I'll be there. No problems. Give me the question. I will help you. Probably I won't give you the answer. I will tell you, where to find an answer, because this is the second step. Let them, create, their own, learning process, and make them realize of their learning process is something that is not only important here in the step number 2, but throughout all the process. From my point of view, this is the most important in learning, especially in science. If they are capable to to reflect on everything that they have done, and through that create a learning process. This is a good way to get improvements for the future, right? And for the student's role will be, to make predictions, searching, collecting data, and especially sharing ideas. I do not have to give them, any kind of software or digital tools to get connected to their mates, because they are much more digital than I am. But I ask them, several times to share ideas, sure, and go and ask, any mate, you could see they can help you. This is very important here, right? And in this step, what I'm going to use, as you can see, is the key concepts, which I told you, is an interactive document, and the glossary. It's very important to take a look at, these documents, because in the platform, not only the content is scientifically, correct, but also, I think they have done a great job in terms of organizing the information. They are very visual, so the students will be able to remember, all the content easily. And this is one of the keys once I decided to run into this platform. So I told you, I'm going to work with the key concepts as the main concept, as the main source, and the glossary. And then I will introduce, the online activities. You can use them as you want, but from my point of view, in this stage, at this moment, what I want students is to check, commit errors, play with the online activities. There is no problem. It's true that the platform, once you create, teams, will give you, let's say, a tracking, a report of what every single student has been done. So you will be able to see, that some students have done the activities 10 times or 12 times, There's no problem, the idea is that they are playing with it, they are getting familiarized with the content. So what I want is students at this stage to play. And for these, the online activities are not just a single thing. They are activities that can be, much more engageable and motivating, for the students. For example, in mass and volume, they have to order, as you can see here, some matter depending on the mass. And also, in the second one, states and changes, if it's matter or if it's not matter, before talking about, the different, reactions that they are gonna find, right? If it's physical or chemical, right? And as the end of the step number 2, I will give an assignment, which is do the online activities. In this moment, I'm, being, very much more, rigid than I was before. Now is the moment in which I do want, students all the students to do the online activities, so I can get, my first, register of their evolution throughout these 5 E's process, and I will be able to send, emails to those who require, any help, right? If I find, that there is, for example, an error that is committed in all the members of the classroom, of course, I will have to take, measures. So this is the idea, we are not leaving them alone, we are checking what they are doing, in continuous assessment can help us a lot. And as the second part of the assignment will be to watch the video. Which video? The video that I showed you before. It's only the beginning. I only show you, some seconds of the video. In this video, they will be able to get, content. Why do I do this? I don't want students to waste their time, and I don't want to waste my own time, doing something passive for my students. So what I want them is to check the video at their homes, in this case, individually. They can check, they can stop the video whenever they want. They can watch the video several times, depending on their needs, But I'm not here to click on a play on a play icon. What I want students is to take a look at the video, and once they have taken a look at it, discuss with me, what the doubts are. I think I'm much more useful if I do this, right? And this is the jump into the next step, which is explain. We are blending here. It's very important to blend here my previous knowledge and the new content. For this, sometimes we do the 3W, chart in which, we will be able to check, what we knew about that and what we know right now about it, right? And for those who are working right now in, for example, in bilingual education, it is very important, and for those who are English second language learners, it's very important to give them time to share, to debate, not only in pairs but also teams if it's needed, and the content seems to be, like it has to be reviewed longer. It's the moment to create teams and send them, for example, to Padlet, or send them, or create, you can ask them, to do it by themselves because they are, much more digital. We can ask them to, to get in teams and debate a lot about the content. And not only that, to get ready for presenting the knowledge they have acquired by their own words. So it is very important to have, a very, let's say, organized way of presenting information. And for those who are English second language learners, this will be, pretty important. So for that thing, sometimes what they need are examples. And if they require examples, not only we as teachers can record ourselves and send them, but also some students who have, much easier to, for example, speak in English, can do it before, and the students, and the rest of the classroom can see it after, right? Okay. So as you can see here in the chart, the teacher's role will be to answer questions and doubts, to guide each student towards learning all the contents. This is the moment in which I want all the students to have 100% clear all the contents. Meanwhile, students will be analyzing the data that they collected, through the previous, step, and they will be able to present formally all the content. To be able to summarize something that is very, very, very needed. It's a single word. It's easy to say summarize, but it is very important to do a good summary. So my suggestion is to take, the time to check the summary of every single student. So every single time they want us to send any document, we have to be, 100%, available for them, to check that. To describe what was observed, and especially, to develop the oral language skills. In this case, students will be, explaining, for us, the content. So my suggestion, of course, is to implement, the speaking skill, right? So why I want students to take a look at the video? It's because the video is giving us a lot of information and well organized. This is also, a sample of how they can implement, their presentation in the future, once they have to record themselves. Let me show you the video.
Matter and its changes.
Huh? What the? Whatever happened to this ice cream?
Your ice cream, your clothes, your bones, the air you breathe, the water or rocks, they all have something in common. They are all matter. All the things in the universe that we can see and touch, as well as the things we can't, are made of matter. Matter may have shape or not. It may be visible or invisible. It may be liquid, solid, or gaseous. But what is matter?
Matter is everything that has mass and volume. That is, anything that weighs and takes up space.
Yeah, right. Is air matter? Air does not take up any space.
Well, what is occupying the space in that balloon?
Aha! Okay, everything is matter. But what is matter made of?
Matter is made up of very, very tiny particles called atoms that combine in different ways to form molecules. Like me, and like my friend Glub, the water molecule.
The way particles are organized and behave within matter makes the matter in nature solid, liquid, or gaseous. In solid matter, particles are very close together and do not move. Therefore, they have a definite shape and are stable. In liquids, particles are more loose and move. Therefore, they do not have their own shape, but flow and take the shape of the container. In gases, particles are far apart and move in all directions. Therefore, they have no definite shape and flow, as in the case of liquids. But in the case of gases, they fill all the available space. In our planet, all matter is present in one of these three states, but may change depending on certain conditions.
Yes, but why did my solid ice cream melt?
Because matter is a subject to all kinds of changes. Things rot, burn, melt, stretch, crush, rust. Some changes are chemical, meaning that the composition of matter is modified. And other changes are physical and do not alter the composition of matter, only its shape, position, volume, and of course, its state. The changes of state in matter are the most important physical changes and occur due to temperature variations. Heat and cold cause changes of state in matter.
Heat? Changes in state? What does this remind me of?
Me! Heat produces the changes in state necessary for the water cycle to work. The water in the seas and oceans is evaporated by the heat of the sun. It condenses into clouds and then falls as rain and snow and freezes when it's too cold.
That's correct. Heat is a type of energy that transforms matter.
What? Can I now eat my ice cream in solid state?
Okay, now that we have seen the video, as you can see, the video is well organized. Students have an idea of what of the whole, let's say all the content that they have to learn. If they want to learn that, much more in depth, they can do it. But all the contents are here. Not only here, orally talking, which I think they can engage students much easier than if they are reading code. But also they got the reading code, which is the key concept, in a very much more ludic than a textbook usually is, which is thousands of words, So as I was saying, we have to play with all these resources that we got in order to help the students understand that. For me, one of the most important, parts of the 5 is explaining, because this is a moment in which the students are going to be able to explain to us, to present us, the information that they have acquired. If you follow, what Einstein said once, which is, if you are not capable or able to tell what it means you don't know it. That's why this is very important. So from my point of view, and especially if you're working in a bilingual school in which students are acquiring all these contents in English, and it's not English their mother tongue, this is a very, very important part. But not only for those who are in a second language. Sometimes we understand it's very easy to students to speak in their own language about a content that probably it isn't. They need patterns. They need to follow some ideas, some samples or models of what they can do, right? So in this case, as I told you, I will play with the video, but not only with the video, I will play with some other documents, and in this case I'm showing you here 2 documents. And I was talking about summarizing, and I was being very I think I repeated several times the importance of summarizing, and it's because of that, right? I really would like to take a look at this introduction, at this sets of, let's say, posters in which you've got the information collected, and the information is not all the information written. Visually I can get an idea, and a specific idea of what I want. Look at, for example, the changes in matter, in which you got physical changes and the chemical changes. The idea of that every single image can give me a very good idea of what I'm talking about, to classify them. This is the type of things that are very important for me. Summarizing is very important. So my idea is that we have to give them as many examples of as possible, right? So visual summary, doing visual summaries are very important, and we are very used to give them our own mind maps to students. But this is our way to classify the information. But not every single person have their own mind map, the same mind map. So what I want students is to create their own one. This is my proposal for this step. I'm gonna give students several ways of classifying information, of summarizing the information, and they have to create their own one. We can like give them ideas of mind maps or visual summaries, from the top to the bottom, from the left to the right, from the center to the outside. So there are many ways of classifying the information, and this is what the students need, right, in this moment. So in this step, we will have 100% clear, what every single student have. So we will be able to help them, much more now that they are going to show, they are showing us, what they know. By the end of this stage, I will run into my assignment, the assignment number 3, which will be, focus on searching for more experiments on the internet. So experiments that are confirming, the hypothesis. This is also an idea that I apply in other, contents, not only in this one about physics. I do want students to also, develop their own digital skills. How? By filtering the information, right? I want students not to check for experiments. I want students to check experiments that are confirming their hypothesis, right? So the idea is this: tell me which one are confirming, your hypothesis. And if you don't find at least 3, it means, you have to search a little bit more, right? Sometimes I play, this game with the students, giving them, 3 websites in which information is incorrect or different in the 3 of them. So the students don't know which is the website that they have to check. So what I ask them is to check other websites, minimum 3 of them, in which they can confirm any of the information that is given in the website. What I don't want students is to go into the internet thinking that everything that they can see is 100% correct, right? So this is a good moment to develop their own digital skills. Then we will run into number 4, which is elaborate. The main goal here is to introduce new experiences. I want them to live the phenomenon, to live, the experience, and to be able to explain that at the same time, right? So they were talking before about something much more theoretical, in which they are telling us, the process of how they explore and then what is the information they have taken. But this is a moment in which I do want every single student to get their hands dirty. I want them to do things. This is a moment very important for me, and this is what I call sometimes, my learning by doing moment. Also, it's going to help us to give extension on and further explanation of the content taught, right? And also to give, just to get the students, much more ready for formal language communication, especially when we are talking about science. There are specific ways of mentioning or naming, things. This is a moment in which, I'm not gonna ask students to give me, not accurate, vocabulary. I want them to give me the 100%, Of course, in the explain, most of them has reached them, but it's important, to give them, another possibility. So as you can see, the teacher's role will be, just to help the students have a good experience and to register the steps. So as many experiences as they can have, the better will be, and much more rememberable will be for them, And the student's role will be to apply new knowledge through an experiment or experiments, to draw conclusions based on evidences. Important, I don't want students to give me what is going to happen without evidences, and this is very important. That's why, sometimes we, at the same time, for example, in other subjects like, for example, English, or language, we ask students to feel they are journalists, and they are giving information about what is going on, what happened, for example, in the classroom or in the school. But of course, they gotta give evidences of what it happens before, mentioning it, or, for example, writing it in a newspaper, right? And especially record observations and share them, right? How? We are gonna work with that tower of density. The tower of density, as you can see, will be introducing different liquids with different density. and there will be, some elements which are, objects that will be added, and we will be able to see which ones sink and which ones are floating, and not always in the same layer. So the idea is that, and there are 10,000 videos about that, also in the internet. So this is, the proposal that I think is the more feasible, because you can really do it, because you don't need a lot of things, or strange things or difficult to find, things. These are the ones that everyone or most of us, have at home, so we will be able to do. What I want students is to do it and record themselves doing the experiment. At the same time they are doing the experiment, I don't want, like a Charlie Chaplin, movie in which there is no sound. What I want students is to explain to me what they are doing and what are the information that they are recording. And by the end of the video, I really would like the students to give me their conclusion about this experiment. With this, as you can see, explain and elaborate, we have been working hard on the experiences, on how to introduce information, how to give information for the rest of the people. The information has been acquired, and this is a moment in which, we are 100% sure, it has been done. And the last assignment, of course, will be, before the fifth one, which is, evaluate, is to please review all the content. I want students to take a look at everything, because there is going to be an evaluation by the end. And this is why, the evaluation step take place. The students will have to demonstrate, the acquisition of content and competencies. Also, the evidences of achievements. They have to reflect on the process and make sure, they have understood, why we have taken the different steps and in this order. To apply the content into the new situations, they can also, give us, further information about, what they want to do in the future. And something that is very important is to create, self-evaluation, peer evaluation, and formal evaluation. For if you have used, the different, tools that the platform provide us with for evaluation, you will have a report that I will mention after, in the presentation. So what I use the most, is this, the quiz. The quiz is an activity. It seems like a game. Students are playing and also, trying to answering questions. The questions, are reflecting their knowledge, so we will be able to have a better idea, or let's say a formal idea of what they have acquired or not, right? This creates a report, so every single time we are working with the students, as you can see it, in the column at the left, all the content, all the resources that I've used, and on the top at the every single little, let's say, the thing, column that you got at the right, it's all the students. You will have, who has taken every single resource and what they have done with them. For example, if we choose one, they will be able to tell me, when they have done it, which ones were, correct, questions, which ones were wrong questions, and the time it took them, to do it, right? So, and not only that, if we want to work with self-evaluation, it would be good, to give them, some Google Forms, documents in which, they can send us back information. Also, it will be really good to create a peer, evaluation. So my suggestion is to provide, to some students, to all the students, the resources created by other mate, so they can evaluate them and help the other one to recycle himself and get ready and motivated for a better, performance in the next, unit. This is very important for me, also to evaluate with the students, what the process, the 5 E's was, with this content. This will help me a lot to improve, the unit or the way that I explain, or I play with this content in the future. So I also will ask, students how they felt, when they were working with this, with the 5 E's and this, content, if they consider I was in the right thing or not. So I'm open myself towards an evaluation, and I think this is very important if we want, students to feel, confident and to be capable to talk to us, especially when there is a lack of connection with us, because we are at home, right? So now is the time, for questions. I hope everything was 100% clear and useful for you. But if you need, if there are further information that you require, or any question that you really would like me to answer, I'm here 100% available for you. Well, there was a question about, how can I monitor my students? What I said is that it's very important to not let the students alone every single day. So every single step that we are taking, it is very important to be with them. My suggestion is that it will be really good to check, through Hangouts, through Jitsi, to every single, as much as possible, please use, a software of communication in which students can see you, because we don't see each other as we were used to, in the schools, or in the secondary schools, or in the university. So it will be really nice. So they can see, there is a person behind. In the first stage, if we take a look at the presentation, in the first stage, we can be, helping the students with the engage, by seeing, which ones are really getting ready for exploring or not, helping some people with resources for exploring. Once the explore has been finished, and before the explanation, make sure, students have acquired, all the content, and please get connected to them and get close to them, in order to promote, questions from there. Let them make as many questions as possible, because a question is much more important than an answer. It means, students are curious, they are working with the content, so we will be able to help them. Then once they have elaborated, and the explanation and elaborate, which for me are, very important. First of all, explain, because students have been introducing themselves, with the content. So I have a very good idea of what every single student know, and then, with the video that they have created with the experiment, this can be, like confirm or not. We'll have, the chance to help individually every single student, and then, in the fifth step, it will be, the confirmation of everything that we have done together. And when I say together, is that every single student with the guide, which is us, right? I think there is another question here. Do I have to implement all the five E's in just one session? Not at all, please. Don't do it. It's almost impossible. My suggestion is that take it calmly, and especially, if you work with the five E's, the contents are extended around, the time. So if we are used to work with textbooks, a unit will last, about 2 weeks. But if we are applying five E's, we are playing with the content, we are touching it, we are doing 10,000 things with it. Think that it's going to be for a longer period of time, depending on the content. But my suggestion, and this is my experience, will be 1 month or longer. I've got, five E's, units in which it takes me, more than 2 months in order to reach the content. Because I'd rather, to give, to play, with less content, in terms of what the curriculum can say, less content, but in depth, than 10,000 things that are not going to be, by the end, fixing anywhere, right? Well, let's see if there is another question. I think there are no more questions, and if there are more questions, no props at all. We are here 100%, available for you 24/7. So you can send us an email or by the chat. Also, and well, I hope you like it and you find it, useful. And I hope we will be able to see each other in the next, webinar. Have a nice day, and no problems, with the lockdown. We can make it. You're strong. We can make it. Thank you. Cheers.